जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय 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 विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस शीलाबाई चरणारविंद भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रीला भक्तिदान सरस्वती ठाकुर शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नमाचार्य शिल हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा गोपी जन वल्लभ गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की भक्ति देवी की तुलसी महारानी की सामवेद भक्त वृंद की ताय गौर हरि प्रेमानंद all grace assembled devotees all grace always Shri Guru Gaurang Jai Guru Srila Prabhupada की जय। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय द्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
जय द्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय द्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
जय द्वैत चंद्र
जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय द्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद
जय द्वैत चंद्र जय
Adi Leela chapter 13 verse number 111 अद्वैत आचार्य भार्य जगत पूजित आर्य
अद्वैत आचार्य भार्य जगत पूजित आर्य
नामतान रसिता ठाकुरानी
नामतन रसिका ठाकुरानी
आचार्य आज्ञापान गेल उपहारलान
आचार्य आज्ञापान गेला
आचार्येर आज्ञापान गेल उपहारलान
आचार्य आज्ञापान गेला
उपहारलान देखिते बालक शिरोमणि
देखिते बालक शिरोमणि
अद्वैत आचार्य भार्य जगत पूजित आर्य
अद्वैत आचार्य भार्य जगत पूजित आर्य
नामतान रसिता ठाकुरानी
नामतान रसिका ठाकुरानी
आचार्य आज्ञापान गेल उपहारलान
आचार्य आज्ञापान गेला उपहारलान
देखिते बालक शिरोमणि
देखिते बालक शिरोमणि
Anyone to recite? Number 111.
The meter is not proper.
Yes, Surya. Yes, Surya. Yeah, Surya. Give, can you? Yeah. Yeah, Prabhuji.
need to change it. Then JJ is
Advaita Acharya Bharya Jagat Pujitarya Namatanda Sita Thakurani Acharya Gyapana Gila Upala Dekite Balaka Shiromani. Gorgon Maharaj.
but still.
Yeah, it's a good rule. You can sing it.
No, but still you're not coming. Because the second one, I think this is separately.
Advaita Acharya Bharya. The wife of Advaita Acharya. Jagat Pujita. Worshipped by the whole world. Arya. The most advanced cultured lady. Nama. Name. Tanra. Her. Sita Thakurani. Mother Sita. Acharya Agyapan. Taking the order of Advaita Acharya. Gela. Went. Upahar. Presentation. Lana. Taking. Dekhite. To see. Balaka. The child. Shiromani. Topmost. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One day shortly after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, Advaita Acharya's wife Sita Devi, who is worshipable by the whole world, took her husband's permission and went to see that topmost child with all kinds of gifts and presentations. Purport. It appears that Advaita Acharya had two different houses, one at Shantipur and one at Navadvip. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, Advaita Acharya was residing not at his Navadvip house, but at his Shantipur house. Therefore, as formally explained, text 99, from Advaita's old paternal house, Nijalai in Shantipur, Sita came to Navadvip to present gifts to the newborn child, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagan Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagan Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanste Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpataru Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langete girim Yat kripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramanandamalam Shri Chaitanya Isharam. So here we're reading about Sita Thakurani. Sita Thakurani is actually Yogamaya. Purnamasi. And she has the same, like the blessings of all the devotees. Prabhuji, please give me blessings so that I can speak, not qualified. Please forgive me. So, Sita Thakurani, Srimati Sita Thakurani is Yoga Maya Purnamasi, and she has the same relationship with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Sachi Mata in the mood of parental love. And we are reading, and we will be reading about how she brought so many different kinds of ornaments and garments to worship, to celebrate the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And here it is said Sita Thakurani is worshipable by the whole world, uh, whole universe, because every one of Mahaprabhu's associates, they are very, very special because they have unlimited, infinite love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Radha and Krishna combined. And that's why we always approach Advaita Acharya, like in the song that we sang just now, written by Narottam Das Thakur. So it is said, Doya Koro Sita Pati Advaita Gosai. So we address Advaita Acharya as Sitapati. And by praying to each one of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's so many associates, so many different associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, associates of Nityananda Prabhu, then one will get the qualification, one will get the intelligence as to how to get their mercy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's childhood pastimes are very, very enchanting to the heart. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually, just after he appeared in this material world in Mayapur, at that time Mahaprabhu started crying uncontrollably. And Shri Radha Gopi Janavallabha Pavan Guru Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Mahaprabhu kept on crying and crying and crying, just like any normal baby. And all the ladies, they were trying their best to pacify Mahaprabhu, but pacify Nimai, but he never stopped crying. And finally, one lady, she cried out, "Oh my Hari!" And as soon as she said that, immediately Mahaprabhu stopped crying. So in this way, in a playful way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made all the ladies chant Hare Krishna. And whenever the ladies would sing the glory of Krishna, then Mahaprabhu would dance for them. So in this way, he had so many wonderful childhood pastimes in Mayapur. And Mahaprabhu also had a very intimate relationship with Srivas Thakur's wife, and here Sita Devi also, because they're all his eternal associates. And at one point in time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai, that time his father Jagannath Mishra invited a Brahmana to his house, because those days the culture was that Brahmanas were really pure, very exalted. So householders would invite Brahmanas to their home in order to purify, in order to make the home very auspicious. So he invited this Brahmana to his home, Jagannath Mishra, and this Brahmana was very strict, that what to speak of eating, he would not even accept food cooked by another Brahmana, but he would have to cook himself and offer to his Shaligram Shila, and then only will he take any food. So he came to the home of Jagannath Mishra, and Jagannath Mishra said, please cook something. And So Jagannath Mishra supplied him all the things required for cooking, and this Brahmana cooked, and he offered to his Shaligram Shila. So just as he was offering, we chant Namo Brahmane Devaya. So at that time, Mahaps Nimai came, ate all the preparations. And then Brahmana cried out, "Oh Lord, you spoiled the offering." And then at that time, Jagannath Mishra became so angry. He was about to, chastise Nimai. And then this Brahmana said, he's after all a child. Why are you becoming so angry? And also, maybe my Lord does not want me to eat today. Many times when I go to different places, I don't get anything to eat. So maybe today is such a day that I have nothing. Krishna does not want me to eat anything. Then Jagannath Mishra said, "Please don't speak like that. If someone goes hungry in my home, then it is very very inauspicious for me. So please cook again." And this time, Jagannath Mishra actually made sure Nimai was in another house, and Jagannath Mishra locked the door and made sure that Nimai was nowhere near the offering. So this Brahmana cooked again, and again, as he was offering Namo Brahman Devaya, again Nimai came, ate all the. Then this Brahmana cried out that, "Oh Lord, again my offering is spoiled." And this time he was very adamant that I'm never going to cook again. But at that time, actually, it was late. Vishwarup, who was actually Mahaprabhu's brother, he came. It is said in the scriptures that Vishwarup is actually incarnation of Balaram. So he came there, and just seeing him, this Brahmana was awestruck by his beauty, by his effulgence, by his divinity. He was completely awestruck. So when this Brahmana requested to, when Vishwarup requested to this Brahmana agreed to cook again. And this time, Jagannath Mishra, with a stick in his hand, was guarding the gate, and so many ladies surrounded Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai, and they were joking with Nimai that, "Nimai, you ate this food cooked by this Brahmana. Who knows? Maybe this Brahmana is of a lower order than you. You are born a Brahmana family, but maybe he's much more. He's not as good a Brahmana as you. So maybe by eating the food that he cooked, maybe you lost your caste." Then Nimai replied that, if a cowherd boy eats eats food cooked by a Brahmana, what is a big deal? And of course, at that time, they couldn't understand why Nimai was speaking like that. So anyway, the cowherd ladies were joking with Nimai, and Jagannath Mishra was guarding the gate with a stick in his hand. And again, this Brahmana cooked. He made the offering, and again Nimai came, and again this Brahmana cried out, "Oh, you spoiled my offering." And that time Nimai said, "Whatever person are you? You cook, and then you invite me, and then when you ask me to eat, at that time you say that, why did you spoil my offering? You invite a person to eat, and then you chase him away. Whatever person are you?" And at that time, Nimai displayed his divinity as Supreme Personality of Godhead, as non-different from his Bal Gopal, his worshipable Lord. So at that time, Nimai had not revealed, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had not revealed his identity to everyone as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Nimai told this Brahmana that keep it secret, don't tell anyone. And from that time onwards, this Brahmana, he stopped traveling. He used to travel. So he stopped traveling, and every day he would come, or regularly he would come to see Nimai at Jagannath Mishra's home. So this is one wonderful pastime. And then as Nimai became little older, and Nimai used to go to Ganges, and in Ganges, there are different areas. So there is some area for the men and some area for the women. So what Nimai would do with his friends, he would exchange the clothes of the men and the women. So when they would come out of the river, they would be, you know, completely embarrassed. The men would come out, they would find saris. The women would come out, they find dhotis. So like this, Nimai used to have fun. And then Brahmanas used to be half submerged in the water and chant their Gayatri. And then as they were chanting their Gayatri, and Nimai would say, open your eyes. What's the use of your meditation? The person whom you're trying to meditation is in front of you right now. Just open your eyes and see. And, the Brahmanas will be so frustrated because when they're chanting Gayatri, they don't speak anything. So Nimai, with his mouth, he would take some water and splash it on them. So like this, Nimai was having fun. And yeah, those days, young ladies, they would worship actually God, Lord Shiva and Parvati, in order to get a good husband. So they would bring so many presentations, and they would come to the bank of the Ganga, worship. And then Nimai would go there and say, yes, very good. Lord Shiva is my servant and Parvati is my maid servant. So and the ladies would say, Nimai, don't speak like that. It's really offensive. Then Nimai would say, yes, I am the real one. So just give me all the presentations. And all the ladies would become very angry. Some of them would become angry and run away. And Nimai would say, if you run away, if you don't give me, I will curse you. That you will get husbands who have many co-wives who look very ugly. So in this way, Mahaprabhu, Nimai would have so much fun. And they would go and complain to Sachi Mata that your son performs so many, so he's so naughty, and then Jagannath Mishra would become very angry. He said, okay, I'll make sure he does not go to Ganga. But then this lady will say, no, actually that's okay, even though he's a little mischievous. But actually, even though we go to Ganga to worship Lord Shiva and so many things, actually the real purpose of our going to the Ganga is to see him. So, and then they ran to Nimai and told him, your father is coming to chastise you. And Nimai, just smiling, he changed the course of where he was, and he was walking in another direction, coming back home. And at that time, Jagannath Mishra saw him and said, Nimai, why are you so naughty? Why are you going to Ganga and doing all these activities? Then Nimai very innocently would say, I didn't go to Ganga. Look at me. I'm just coming from school. And lo and behold, like Jagannath Mishra would see Nimai. And Nimai, with his clothes on, his hair dry and, very dusty. And, all over his face, there's so much, not all over, there are some ink marks. And it really looks like he just came from school. So Jagannath Mishra would wonder, looks like what he's saying makes some sense. So in this way, Nimai would play with different associates in different ways. Sometimes Nimai would approach some lady, and like Nimai is a very young boy, and he would approach and say, will you marry me? So these are the kind of very, very amazing pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his childhood. One time, Nimai, in the courtyard of Mother Sachi, there was actually a snake, and Nimai was playing with that snake, and all the associates of Mahaprabhu, all Sachi Devi, Jagannath Mishra, seeing this, they became very, very concerned, and they didn't know what to do, because they can't go near the snake because they're afraid the snake will bite them, and Nimai is like in the tight embrace of that snake. So anyway, so after some time, Nimai had some pastime with that snake, and that snake left. So that is Anantashesh. came to take darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like we were reading in the previous verses also, that how so many celestial ladies came from the heavenly planets to offer so many presentations to see in the shape of Brahmana ladies. They came to see Nimai. And uh, of course, as Nimai grew up and he entered his scholarly age, he was so brilliant actually. Um, he was so brilliant that he superseded all the serious students in his class. And by the age of 11, he not only finished his school, but he started his own school also. So this is Mahaprabhu's amazing activities, Mahaprabhu's childhood activities. And the more and more we meditate and we read about these pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then the heart becomes purified. And the more the heart becomes purified, the more we can appreciate these pastimes. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that even though Mahaprabhu ended his pastimes 500 years ago, these pastimes are still going on eternally in the spiritual world. And since Mayapur is an extension of the spiritual world, Golok Navadvip is an extension of the spiritual world. So, I mean, I'm not qualified, but when the eye of Prem will be opened, then we can actually see these pastimes. Mahaprabhu conducting these pastimes in the divine Navadvip. And we say that Krishna came as Mahaprabhu to teach us, but at the same time, this teaching us is not a temporary activity. It's not that he came uh, just in this material world to enact this pastime, but in the spiritual world also, there is a part of Goloka which is called Golok Navadvip, and there Mahaprabhu is eternally enacting his pastimes. And similarly, Narahari Chakravarti explains in Bhakti Ratnakar that there is Golok Ekachakra also, there is Golok Shantipur also. So every, just like Braja, all the places in Braja are also there in the spiritual world, like Nandagram, Yavat, so on and so forth. So same way, all the different places in Navadvip are also there in the spiritual world. And Goloka has two compartments, and that's why our Srila Prabhupada said that generally associates of Mahaprabhu have two swarups, one in Golok Vrindavan and one in Golok Navadvip. So here again, Sita Devi is actually making the arrangements. She is Purnamasi, so she is making all the arrangements to serve Nimai. She would regularly go to Sachi Mata, and it is explained that Sachi Mata and Sita Devi are like both of them, they're one in the heart, and both of them are constantly absorbed in thinking of how to serve Nimai. And just like Purnamasi or Yogamaya in Golok Vrindavan makes the arrangement for serving Krishna, for facilitating the pastimes of Krishna. So in the same way, in Golok Navadvip or here in these pastimes, Sita Devi is actually making the arrangements of how to satisfy Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is a very good mood actually. It's a very good mood. And this mood of making arrangements to satisfy the Lord uh, is the best mood in Krishna consciousness. So rather than thinking that how can I serve the Lord, it's better to consider what is the Lord's pleasure and how the Lord will be happy, and how we can bring the Lord together with his pure devotee. So actually that is the mood of our Krishna consciousness movement, that for any service, for anything in Krishna consciousness, we always try to follow the footsteps of the previous acharyas. And the reason why we want to follow the footsteps of previous acharyas is so that we can represent the previous acharyas to Krishna. Like like we say that, I mean, this statement may be a little confusing, but just like, for example, we sing the bhajans of the previous acharyas. So when we sing the bhajans of the previous acharyas, our meditation is not that we are, directly addressing the Lord, but our consciousness is actually the previous acharyas are addressing the Lord. So we are bringing the previous acharyas together. I mean, we're bringing Krishna and the previous acharyas together, and because the previous acharyas are all pure devotees, naturally the previous acharyas will please Krishna. Krishna will be very pleased. Mahaprabhu will be very pleased by the prayers of the previous acharyas. So when Krishna Mahaprabhu becomes pleased by the previous prayers of the previous acharyas, then because we happen to be, some insignificantly related to the previous acharyas, therefore in that same way the previous acharyas will pass on Krishna's reciprocation to them, to us. So, I mean, this is like a really wonderful mood in Krishna consciousness, that always trying to bring the Lord and his pure devotee together, or for that matter, like even in the temple, even at home, that, okay, this service has to be done for the Lord. So, how can we do this service in such a way that it will please Krishna? Like, who is the most expert at doing this service? So, let that person be engaged and let us serve that person. Let's become the servant of that person, so that the Lord will be very pleased, because every devotee of the Lord has been empowered by him to render service to him in a particular way. Like, he wants a particular service from every devotee in this movement and in the spiritual world, both. Krishna, like some Krishna empowers some devotees to make really, really amazing garlands. Krishna empowers some devotees to sing very nicely. Krishna empowers some devotees to dress very nicely. Krishna empowers some devotee to cook very nicely. Some Krishna empowers some person to preach very nicely. So everyone has their own thing, unique contribution to Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so, if we can recognize that talent and that ability, and we can push that devotee forward in that service, then that way we will please Krishna also. And at the same time, since we ourselves, we're trying to take a humble position, we're practicing Trinadapi Sunichena also. So we see that all the associates of the Lord, they always take this humble position. Like we hear that in Golok Vrindavan, even the most intimate associates of Krishna, even they also are constantly looking that how Krishna can be pleased in the best possible way. Like even though the eternal associates of Krishna, they know very well how to serve Krishna. They know. Nobody needs to teach them. But still, even though they know, still they're looking for newer and newer souls or other associates to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And actually, this is the mood that pleases the Lord the most. When the Lord sees that all the devotees are cooperating together to serve him, then that pleases him the most. Because from the Lord's perspective, when we consider the spiritual world, all are pure devotees. So everyone is dear to him. Everyone is dear to him. It's not that some people are not dear. It's not that even the desired trees are not dear. Even the kalpavrikshas are so dear to him. So because the kalpavrikshas, they give him shade, they give him fruits. Like there's one pastime when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Amghat, and the devotees were dancing and chanting for hours, for days. And then Mahaprabhu, with his, he pushed a stick in the ground, or he pushed his thumb, his big toe in the ground. And as a result of that, I'm sorry if I'm not saying the details properly, but as a result of Mahaprabhu's divine inspiration or divine arrangement, a mango tree came. So that mango tree gave fruits, mango fruits, such that they had no skin and no seed. So like these kalpavrikshas also very, very important. Actually, these kalpavrikshas are very important to us, because we say, right, taror eva sahishmana. The tree is very, very important, uh, because the tree, in this, what to speak of the spiritual world, in this tree, in this world, the trees, they give shade, uh, they give shelter when it's really hot, they give fruits, they give flowers, they give leaves also. Sometimes leaves are also used in medicinal purposes, but they do not protest at all. Even like people come and take the fruits, people stand under the tree for shade. Sometimes people even cut down a tree for different purposes, even for material purposes, but the tree never protests, the tree only serves. So if this is the quality in this world, we can imagine what is the quality of the desire trees. Desire trees are very important, like Madhavendra Puri, uh, who is who is the entry of the love of the divine love of Shri Radha and Krishna, actually is a Kalpavriksha. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when he was writing about the pastimes of Krishna, then he actually spoke to the trees, and the trees told him about all the pastimes. So these trees are also very, very important. Like Prabhupada one time gave um, a name to one of his disciples, Madhavi Lata. And then Prabhupada, just saying the name of Madhavi Lata, Prabhupada went into ecstasy. And Prabhupada was in ecstasy, and Prabhupada said that Radha and Krishna take a lot of pleasure under this tree. And Srila Prabhupada also says, like, if there's only Radha and Krishna, there's no Yamuna, there are no cowherd boys, there's no Mother Yashoda, there are no trees, then it will not have the same, the pastimes will not have the same flavor. So, uh, coming back to the point, all associates are very dear to Mahaprabhu in their own way. In their own way, Mahaprabhu and Krishna are receiving or exchanging some very, very sweet relationship. In this material world, we say that Krishna is detached, Atmaram, he is not interested, because Krishna is beyond this matter. Krishna is Sachidananda Vigraha. But in the spiritual world, because all his associates are also just like him, they are completely pure, they are also Sachidananda, one in quality, not in quantity, but one in quality. So the Lord actually longs for the loving reciprocation of all his devotees, all the associates in both Navadvip and Vrindavan. So each associate of the Lord is as dear to the other. And what is the purpose of this ISKCON movement? The purpose of this ISKCON movement is to create the same society, the same community, the same environment as a spiritual world. That's why Srila Prabhupada made ISKCON. So in the same way, we can also reflect that every devotee in ISKCON, a serious devotee, is actually dear to Prabhupada, dear to Srila Prabhupada in a very unique way. And Srila Prabhupada in course of time will take a particular kind of service from that devotee uh, in course of time. So um, it's, I mean, speaking for myself, that it's very nice to remember that, and it's very nice to treat every devotee in that way, and always try to engage devotees in the service of the Lord, and have the mood of assisting them. That way will please them also, because pleasing devotees is very, very important. Actually, that's what pleasing devotees does not necessarily mean that you have to serve devotees separately, but as devotees engage in the service of the Lord, if you can assist them in that service, then that is the best thing. That is the best thing. Because there's nothing which is more pleasing to a devotee than bringing him closer to his service to the Lord. So, Mahaprabhu's pastimes are like a bottomless ocean. Every verse, I mean, I don't have the adhikar to see, but every verse is actually an eternal treasure mine of nectar. And um, Bhagavatam, it's mentioned, Chaitanya Charitamrita glorifies Srimad Bhagavatam as every akshar, every syllable, what to speak, a word, is filled with prema rasa. And Chaitanya Charitamrita is considered to be the postgraduate study. So you cannot imagine the kind of ecstasy, the kind of divine exchange in every single verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And that's why, like, we see all our acharyas, our divine uh, grace, Srila Prabhupada, His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, in the Jaladuta when he was in a very dangerous situation. Even at that time in his diary, he writes that I am relishing the nectar of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we read also about Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur also mentioned that how Chaitanya Charitamrita was his favorite book. God Babaji Maharaj said that just by reading Chaitanya Charitamrita again and again, you will attain spiritual perfection. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his pastimes, Mahaprabhu and his associates, they are so merciful. They're so merciful. Um, in Kali Yuga, it is said that as time passes on, in Navadvip Mahatmya, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes that Navadvip Dham will become more and more open, more and more accessible to the world, and Vrindavan will become more and more covered. And so that's why the way to attain Vrindavan is by actually absorbing ourselves in the pastimes of Mahaprabhu more and more and more. And that is the way. Just like, sometimes you take a connecting flight to reach a place. We don't take a flight directly to a place. So in the same way, the way to enter Goloka is through, Golok Ekachakra, Golok Navadvip, and only then is it possible. Otherwise, because Radha and Krishna take so many offenses, so that's why without taking shelter of Mahaprabhu, it is impossible to approach them. And because to approach Krishna, one needs to be completely pure, completely pure. That's why without taking shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Mahaprabhu's associates, it's impossible to worship Krishna. So I will end here. It's 9:09. Please forgive me if I spoke anything inappropriate. Anyone has any question or comment? Would you like to say something? Okay, nobody has any question or comment. Then we will end. Panchakalpatarubhyasya kripasindubhya vacha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavya. Ananta